What's up, guys? Gonna be doing a quick breakdown of the card here. My college football and NFL videos are out, and I did talk about the NFL game as I actually have a play on the New Orleans Saints -1 tonight. You can go check out the NFL video to see the breakdown, the analysis of that game. College football, we got two games tonight, as usual. Seems like we have a couple. JMU is at Marshall tonight. JMU, 77% of the tickets, but only 56% of the cash. And the line is kind of sitting around -3.5. JMU on the road at Marshall. I think that there are professional bettors on Marshall here. Those market percentages are letting you know that some of the bigger money is on Marshall, since a lot less of the cash and the tickets are on James Madison. So that tells me some of the bigger bets are on Marshall. Marshall's 4-2, JMU 6-0, and JMU 3-0 in conference. Marshall 1-1. So the general feeling is that the recreational bettors might just look at this and think, yeah, JMU is certainly the better team here and like them better. But Marshall, I think, has faced at least a slightly tougher schedule. They did face you can look at their two losses. They faced NC State, which is a pretty big game. That was like their biggest game on the schedule against a big conference team. They lost that game in a tough game by 7, and then I bet against Marshall coming off that game. And it's kind of a situation where they lost that game twice because it was such a big game. They lost to Georgia State the next game, and of course they had this game upcoming, so that could have been like a look-ahead situation. So I think that explains why they lost to Georgia State. So I do think that there is some value on the Marshall side here. So that's the way that I would look in this one. Marshall at home, plus the points there. JMU, they have a couple of decent wins on their slate as well, but I think the feeling is that even though JMU is the better team, that they're not that much the better team, that they should be laying that many points on the road. So some of it's a little bit of a perception there with JMU being the undefeated team and Marshall having a couple of losses there. But like I said, you can kind of explain those losses. So I think it's a closer matchup than it might appear. So Marshall, I think, would be the side in that one. The other game is Rice-Tulsa. So we had Marshall in the Sun Belt, and then Rice-Tulsa, I believe, is Conference USA. These teams keep playing in the middle of the season here. Oh, no, they're actually the American Conference now. Never mind. So Rice-Tulsa, you got Tulsa, has gone up from -1.5 to -3, and it looks like it's going through the 3 at home, with Rice having 69% of the tickets on their side, however, and Tulsa 51% of the cash on their side, with the number moving up on Tulsa. So it looks like there's reverse line movement going on there on the Tulsa side. So I think some of the more respected bettors appear to be on the Tulsa side. Rice does have a game upcoming against Tulane, so I don't know if that might be a look ahead. That's a ranked opponent that they have going there. Rice being a 3-3 team, and Tulsa also 3-3. They're actually both 3-3 and 1-1 in conference. Although you'd think that generally, just based on the name recognition, the perception would be that Tulsa must be the better team. They're certainly the more recognized name, let's say. So I don't have as strong a feeling on this one. But Rice does have that game against Temple upcoming, which, I don't know, that might be cause for a little bit of a look ahead. I can definitely tell you that the market read is saying Tulsa, but it is up to 3. So I wouldn't want to lay like more than 3 on Tulsa, on the home favorite there. So the market read has some fairly strong indications on Marshall plus the points at home, and Tulsa minus the points at home. In those two games, I'll just look at NHL really quickly, because there isn't a whole lot that I can really tell you about NHL, even though it's a packed card. It's a full slate. There are a lot of discrepancies that I see in the market percentages here versus how the number has moved, how the line has moved. It looks like the number in a lot of these games has moved against where I see the market percentages going. So I don't really know how to quite interpret that. And the one game that I was going to potentially look at immediately, I'll just point it out real quickly, would have been Dallas at Anaheim, because Dallas is coming off. I would look to go against Dallas in the spot that they're in, because they just played a tough game in Vegas that went at least overtime. I don't know if it was a shootout. Went into overtime. I think that was also a playoff series rematch from last year. I think Dallas got eliminated by Vegas last year. So that was a big game for Dallas. It's a game I pointed out on one of these videos where the line had actually flipped the favorite and flipped Dallas, I think, being a road favorite in that game, which seemed a bit odd to me. But Dallas definitely played competitively, played pretty well. The game wound up being a game that could have gone kind of either way in that one, and Vegas wound up squeaking by with the win there in overtime. So that's a tough loss for Dallas because they had that, even though revenge doesn't mean that much. I think you do remember that team that knocked you out of the playoffs last year, and this is their first game against them this year. So I think that was in Dallas's mind. So that was a big game for Dallas, and they're coming off that. So I would expect them to be in kind of a bad spot coming off that game, like a hangover spot after such an emotional high of a game. But they're facing Anaheim, and Anaheim just wrecked Carolina at home. And I pointed out on one of these videos in that game that Carolina wasn't really in the best spot in that game. So I kind of liked Anaheim to at least cover the puck line in that game. And Anaheim won outright by multiple goals, I think. So that's unfortunate because both of these teams are really in like go against spots. So that's kind of the issue that I see there with Dallas and Anaheim. They're in a situation where I'd look to go against both of those teams, and that kind of coalesces all at once. So that's unfortunate as far as like looking for like a decent side there. I don't think I would want to be on either of those teams in this case, which might indicate that maybe the over would be the play. I do see that the line has moved from under 6 minus 120 to it looks like over 6 minus 108. So it looks like the line has shifted a little bit, possibly on the over, even though it also looks like the percentages don't quite bear that out with 71% of the tickets on the over and 52% of the cash on the over, it looks like here, but it looks like the line has moved in that direction. So I don't know. Maybe a very slight lean to the over in that one, but I don't have much to say on the NHL card otherwise. I've got to wait for the season to really kind of kick in, and then we start getting some of these nice spots where teams are like in sandwich spots and coming home from like long road trips and stuff. A couple of teams are coming home from some shorter road trips today, but I don't know if there's much to read into in those. And finally, I'll talk about the MLB games. Both series are in action here. We have the Phillies at the Diamondbacks, with the Phillies up 2-0 in the series, and I believe they were off yesterday. And that is the earlier of the two games here. It's Ranger Suarez against Brandon Pfaadt. Ranger Suarez, I've talked about him on the show before. His whip this year was very high, 1.42, which indicates that his 4.18 ERA probably should be even higher than it was. That whip is really bad. Suarez, not a very good pitcher. He's in the back end of the Phillies rotation. I might wind up actually making a play on this. You might be seeing me thinking about this in real time. I might do it. Suarez has a 270 OBA against the Arizona hitters in 74 at-bats. They've been able to knock him around. That's not good. Like I said, I really don't like his whip. His whip is awful. And his history against the Diamondbacks hitters is not good. He's coming off, I believe, 2 games where he started against the Braves, and the Phillies won both of those games. Suarez was decent in both of those games, but he didn't really go deep into either of those games. So that's kind of been how he's been pitching in the playoffs here. They let him go like 4 or 5 innings, and then they have to kind of like take him out, and he gives up like a couple runs typically. And he's up against Brandon Pfaadt, and Pfaadt, like, maybe I don't want to play this because here's the thing. Pfaadt, I mean, his stats are also bad on the season. A 5.72 ERA, really not good. 1.41 whip, also bad, even though that's actually better than Suarez's whip on the season. But Pfaadt, he's a rookie, and he's made 2 postseason starts now this season, and hasn't been that terrific in them, and they took him out pretty early in both of those games. He was serviceable in those games. He wasn't very good against Milwaukee, even though they somehow wound up winning that game. Gave up 3 runs in 2 2/3. That's not very good. Against the Dodgers, he improved a bit and had a shutout going into the 5th, and they took him out. So he hasn't been throwing that many pitches. He's been getting taken out of the games as well, even earlier than Suarez has. So that gives me a little bit of pause, but the one thing that makes me kind of want to take Arizona here is that Fott has actually never been faced before by the Phillies. So I think that gives him a little bit of an early edge for Fott there. Just because when you have a pitcher that hasn't been seen before by those opposing hitters, they tend to have that edge just very early in the through the order there, like the first couple times through the order. Diamondbacks, you can get plus 105, first 5 inning wager. I think I'm just going to do it. Yeah. Arizona, first 5 inning, because I like the starting pitching matchup. I don't want anything to do with when these bullpens get involved, because I think both of these pitchers are going to get taken out of the game probably somewhere around in the 5th inning. They might both be out of the game by then. You can get the Arizona Diamondbacks plus 105. First 5 inning wager at home. I think I'm going to do that. And the other thing is, I mean, they're kind of on the ropes. So they're down 2-0 in the series. So if they lose this game, go down 3-0, they're pretty much out of it. Like I kind of said with Houston, and they wound up winning yesterday, which I'll talk about in a second real quick. Hopefully I have time to do this. But with Arizona, well, with a team, like Arizona here, when they're on the ropes, you could say they have a lot of pressure on them. They might be they might be overvalued just because of that, like, sort of must-win situation that they're in. But in this case, Arizona's the underdog, and of course, they're going to be playing to try to win the game. They're playing for their lives. So I tend to think that it's that they'd be overvalued, and I wouldn't really want to look to go with them if that team was like a favorite, especially a substantial favorite. When they're an underdog, and it's kind of like the must-win where they just need to win the game, and that's what you're playing as the underdog. I think there is value to be had there. And market-wise here, it does look like 76% of the tickets, but 84% of the cash on Philadelphia for the full game at least, and they've gone up from minus 115 to minus 124, so it does look like there's some money moving the Phillies up a little bit, but they are still the public team, so I don't know how much you can read into that market read there. I like Arizona in the first 5 innings because Fott has not been seen before by the Phillies hitters, and I don't like Suarez's track record against Arizona or his stats on the season. I think he's being overvalued because his ERA makes him look like he's significantly better than Fott, but I think at best, I think he's about as bad as Fott is as far as like putting a similar number of guys on base, etc. So that's the way that I'm looking there. I'm actually playing it first 5 inning wager there on the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then you got Houston, Texas. Like I said, Houston turned it around and got a road win yesterday to kind of stay alive and cut the series to 2-1. And now today they have Urquidy pitching for Houston, who I talked about yesterday. He has awful stats on the season, a 1.43 whip and a 5.29 ERA, kind of like those two pitchers in the other matchup. Not good on the season. However, versus the Rangers hitters in 78 at-bats lifetime, only a 218 OBA. So those are kind of conflicting stats there, where Urquidy has not been good on the season at all, but specifically, against Texas hitters, he has been pretty good historically. He's up against Heaney for Texas, who has a 4.15 ERA on the season, but a 1.38 whip, which is a pretty bad whip as well. Not very good. Indicative that his ERA should probably be a little bit higher than it is. And his track record versus Houston, they've faced him 179 at-bats worth and hit 263 off of him. So he's done worse against Houston than Urquidy has done against Texas. Even though Urquidy, I think, is the somewhat worse of the two pitchers here. Neither of them are very impressive, really. We're in the back ends of the rotations for both of these teams here. Houston won yesterday. I think they had a 5-0 lead at one point, and they kind of let it slip a little bit, and they wound up still hanging on and won 8-5, but it meant that Houston had to use their closer and the back end of their bullpen there. Texas used more of their relievers because Scherzer didn't fare that well early in the game, and I did point out that he did not have good stats against Houston lifetime, over 300 OBA, and that kind of bear it out that way, as he didn't do well. They had to take him out of the game. He gave up 5 runs, I think. Didn't do well, and Texas used a couple of their innings-eating pitchers though to kind of save some of their better relievers there. So the bullpen situation might be a little bit of a wash. Texas used more of their relievers, and I think their bullpen is worse than Houston's in general. But Houston used a couple of their best relievers, including their closer yesterday. So there are a lot of counter. There are a lot of stats that run counter to each other in this game. So I don't know. The market read has 64% of the tickets, but 51% of the cash on Houston. So it looks like potentially more of the more respected bets. That means more of the money is coming in on Texas. But Texas looks like they've also dropped from -120 to -113. I don't know. I don't even know which way I would lean there. The market indicators kind of look like they're pointing somewhat in the direction of Texas, but the pitchers' stats against each other are all kind of conflicting with each other. So I don't really know. I don't really have a lean on that one. But that's going to do it for me here today. I am going to be on the Arizona Diamondbacks first 5 inning wager at +105 at the underdog price. Hopefully that pans out. And go watch my NFL video. I'm on the New Orleans Saints -1, I believe. That's going to do it. I'm Toad. Better off dead. I'm very dead. I basically haven't even slept. You saw me 3 hours ago doing the NFL video. Peace.